We're gonna go ahead and get started. I wanna welcome everybody to the meeting tonight. We have a very special guest with us, and you will hear from him in a few minutes. We're gonna start off with prayer by Joe Bryce.
Let's all stand. I know everybody sitting out ready. Let's just, Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you how you watch over us and how you guide us, lead us, Lord. And we thank you for the speaker that's going to speak tonight, Lord. Just give him wisdom and knowledge, and that we gain great wealth from him, Lord God. And we thank you for the Democrat this year, Lord God, that we get all our seats and everything back, Lord God. And bless each and every one of us, Lord, as we return back to our destiny. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, thank you so much. Now, the pledge of allegiance.
Of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's my pleasure to introduce you, although I think most of you have spoken to him already this evening, Jim Bryan, former state senator from South Carolina, Lawrence. He is married, he has 2 sons, he has 4 grandchildren, and since last we met, I became a great-grandma. He graduated from the University of South Carolina with a BA, 1972. He got his JD, Juris Doctorate. University. Yeah, I know it's a law degree, I didn't know it. University of South Carolina in 1975. He has been an associate probate judge from 1977 through 1984. He was the first lieutenant in the South Carolina National Guard from 1970 to 1977. He served in the South Carolina Senate from 1984 to 2000 and is kept up to date all time since. We're in for a treat tonight. He represented District 9, Lawrence, and Greenville. Senator Jim Bryan.
It is a delight to be in Appleville. This is my brother Frank here. We lived in Appleville from 1950 to 59. We lived at 44 McGowan Avenue. My daddy worked for the highway department. Moved to Lawrence in 59. We weren't too smart. 59, my daddy, I was 10, he was 9. We met the mayor on one square in Lawrence, and the mayor said, "Well, boys, how you like Lawrence?" We said, "We don't. We want to move back to Appleville." After that, my daddy chuckled a little bit. After he left, he says, "Boys, you don't tell the mayor that." We have great fun. That's why we came a little early and rode around just places that we remembered. Frank, every now and then says something profound or does something profound. When we were young here, he got in a little tussle at church with Lamar West. Y'all probably know him. And he hit him in the head with a Bible. Years later, he went by there and told the lady in the office what she had done. She just never looked up. She said, "Somebody needs to hit him in the Bible, him in the Bible again." But that was one profound thing he did. Another profound thing he said, there's big gaps of years before he does something profound after he does something. Many years ago, he told me, he says, "You know who will make a great presidential candidate?" I said, "Who?" He said, "Just look and see who the Republicans are attacking and criticizing." And I thought about it. They do. For years, they attack and criticize and try to give a negative, they call it a negative image, building up their negatives. And Lee Atwater from South Carolina was the one that started making this, turned it into a science. He tried for years and years to beat Fritz Hollins. They kept trying to build up his negatives and kept criticizing. Well, I heard somebody the other day say something about Vice President Harris not doing too good. And this was not somebody against her that felt that she was not, because she heard so much criticism. And I said, "No, that's not what's happening." I said, "Joe Biden's an old fellow, he may decide he doesn't want to or can't run next time. And I said, they see Vice President Harris as the most popular, the prime person to run. And so the Republicans want to tear her down in any way they can by criticizing for any and everything, even when it's not true. You know, they'll say, well, her and Biden on the outs, they're not getting along. Well, they're together everywhere. That's just not true. It's just some fabrication that's been made up. And you know, it's like that from the top all the way to the bottom. You know, there are a lot of people say, Democrats, tell us what you're going to do and run on your merits. We're talking about the Republicans. I wish that was something we could do. I wish you could do that, but you can't be successful politically. You got to run on your merits and tell him what you're going to do, but you also got to tell what he's doing bad. That's not negative politics. An election is a comparison. It's a weigh. And when you hear nothing negative about this person, hear a few positives over here and a few negatives, that's what throws that out of balance. I have a thing when it comes to, it tells me something about don't like the Democrats. My first question is, what is it that you don't like? And when they say, I don't like Nancy Pelosi, I said, well, you know, I don't get around much. Maybe I missed it. You tell me what Nancy Pelosi has done wrong. Oh, I just don't like her. She's too liberal. I said, no, that's generalities. Be a little more specific with it. And they can't. And quite often somebody will say, well, I don't want to talk about it. And I don't let them off. I say, well, it's not that you don't want to talk about it, it's you don't have an answer to the question. And that's the whole thing. But part of our problem getting candidates, I'm serving on a state committee now that's to recruit candidates to run for the House of Representatives, State House. And we have a lot of trouble because there's so many people that have a negative view of the Democratic Party. And the Republicans literally started in the early 80s, really somewhat late 70s, putting a negative view on the word liberal, putting liberal on the word Democrat, and just tearing down Democrats. When I was in the state Senate, I had several Republicans call me and want me to switch to the Republican Party. I said, well, I don't agree with the Republican Party. I said, but you tell me what I've done, what I voted on that you disagree with. Never could find a thing. And after I talked to them a little while, they got around to it. They just get frustrated. It finally comes around to race. The Republicans have used race and tried to drag enough white votes over their own race. And it's worked. Because the Democrats don't fight like we ought to fight.
That's
We
right.
don't put up candidates. For years, they put up candidates against ours until they started beating us. But they put somebody up there to try to knock you down. And we have got to recruit candidates for all our House seats in the state. We're not going to be successful at it. But this is a winnable district.
Oh, yeah.
This is a Democratic district. The right person, and that's another problem we have. We threw one away in Lawrence a few years ago, so the fellow wouldn't campaign, he wouldn't do anything, he wouldn't let anybody help him campaign, and he lost it by 500 votes. The other fellow just campaigned all the time, hard, the Republican. And next time they come to reapportionment, they reapportion that district where we couldn't win. That's what's going on right now. They're trying to reapportion. And after the 1990 election, the Republicans went to the Black Caucus of the House of Representatives and wanted them to work with them to create districts. Well, they went with it. And Representative Ken Kennedy was the only member of the Black Caucus that opposed it. The Black Caucus in the state Senate went over there and told them, says, no, don't do this. You're making a big mistake. You're falling into a trap. They told him, shut up and go back over to the Senate where you belong. and listen. And Ken Kennedy, who's dead now, but was a great man, he kept trying to plead with them, don't do this. The person that was leading the fight was a member of the Black Caucus, was an attorney. And the Black Senate Caucus told me, I talked to them, and they said, Republicans promised to make him a judge if he could get the Black Caucus to go along with the Republican Caucus. And Ken Kennedy, a fellow named Mike Fair, was the most radical right-wing Republican over there. He's mild now compared to what they got over there. They're just far more extreme than he ever was now. But he told them this, he said, let me tell you what you're gonna do. He says, you're gonna get a few more black faces over here, and you're gonna get a whole lot more Mike Fairs. And they did. They increased the Black Caucus numbers, but they lost so many seats to Republicans. In '94, the Republicans took over the House of Representatives. And in '96, one of that Black Caucus members who was very instrumental in getting them to go along with it was quoted in the state paper. It says, don't ever tell me again that there's no difference between a white Democrat and a white Republican. There is a big difference, because what the Republicans did as soon as they went in there, the Black Caucus was cut out completely. They had no say-so in anything. They had a majority, and all they had to do was call for a vote, and they had the votes. I think they ended up with a two-vote majority. And 2 or 3 more switched, so they ended up with 4 or 5 votes there, and they took it over. But that's when they really took over all these seats. What we've got to do is, first of all, explain to people where we stand on issues. But we've got to point out the corruptness of an amoral, pathological liar like Donald Trump. And it starts from the top and it goes all the way to the bottom. I don't know if you've followed this about the indictment of this Representative Quinn and his father. They handle political campaigns. He handles 75% of the political campaigns of all House and Senate members. They are so corrupt, they would, the scam we got one of them for, one senator got pled guilty to it, is he took $250,000 out of his campaign money, which he got from all these rich campaign people who contributed to the Republican candidates. He paid Quinn for political work. Quinn turns around and gives him like $100,000 back, personally to himself, which he puts in his pocket. That's illegal. And there, all kind of shenanigans like that go on down there. And we can whine about it and complain about it, but what we got to do is we got to find somebody to run as a Democrat who'll go down there, and it's not. The Democrats are scared of the Democratic Party. Now people say, that's just you saying this. I say the Democrats are honest and Republicans are corrupt. It doesn't mean there's some very fine people who are Democratic elected officials, and there's some sorry people who are who are Republican elected officials, and some sorry people who are Democratic elected officials. But when it comes to the party structure, the Democrats are honest, the Republicans are corrupt. I know that from being in there. I've personally witnessed it. I have personally talked to people. I knew Lee Atwater. I knew how Lee Atwater worked. I knew a lot of these people that are going to prison now for the Republicans. I knew them very well. But they'll do anything. The Confederate flag. I was sitting there one day and one of them got up and ranting and raving about the Confederate flag. And I said, what? There's nothing about the Confederate flag in any kind of bill. Why is he doing that? And the Republican next to me chuckled and says, every time we do that, it gets in the paper. I said, next time we take a poll, our votes go up on the Confederate flag. Now, what the Democratic Party never bothered to explain to anybody. I tried, God knows, I wrote letters and sent out articles and everything like that. But if you supported the Confederate flag on the State House, there's only 2 reasons you can support it. was, you're racist. And it stands for racism. It does stand for racism. That's what it was. Or the second reason was you were just totally ignorant of history. People say, well, that's part of our history. It wasn't. And sad to say, I bet y'all don't know that either. The flag that flew over the State House from 1962 till 2000, that was not the Confederate flag. That never was the Confederate flag. It was not the Confederate battle flag. There was no such thing as a Confederate battle flag. Every general had their own battle flag. The flag put next to the Confederate monument in the front of the State House was a square flag with white fringe. It was the Army of Northern Virginia, Lee's Army battle flag. That's where South Carolinians, they fought in that army. That's where they were, the ones that died. So there was some historical context to that. The thing up the top of the State House, in 1961, a historical group asked the southern states to fly the Confederate flag over the State Houses from 61 to 65, just in memory of the Civil War, just as a historical thing. Our illustrious legislature, all these brilliant people, they said, this is some kind of a trick. We're not going to do it. There was one guy who was kind of a history nut. He says, it's not a trick, it's the 100th year since the Civil War. We need to historically remember it, not to glorify it. It's not some, but they thought it's some kind of trick to get the South at the South, So it took him to from 1960 to 1962 to convince the idiots that it wasn't a trick. So they did it, and it was supposed to stay up to 65, but it was supposed to be the Confederate flag. That was not the Confederate flag. That was the closest thing to that. There was a Navy Jack on some ships. South didn't have any ships. But it was very close to the battle flag of the Army of Eastern Tennessee. The general of the Army of Eastern Tennessee was Nathan Bedford Forrest. He was a fanatical racist nut. And he helped start the Ku Klux Klan. And they used that to the Klan because it was his battle flag. And that's where people got to thinking that was a Confederate flag because it was really the Klan. Even some movies you'll see the Confederates with a flag, old movies, because they had no historical knowledge of what really went on, what it was like. But that's not even the flag. I saw the real Confederate flag one time. I was walking along with a couple of guys, and I said, "You think you're good old Southern boys, don't you?" I said, "Tell me what that flag is." I don't know. Never seen that before. I said, that is the Confederate flag. But they take something like that and they will tar and feathers with it to some voters. And what we've got to do is we've got to stand up. And the only way we can stand up and put another message out there is with candidates. When our gubernatorial candidate, he's got to hit them. Candidates that we have running have got to hit. We've got so much to hit them with. Medicaid expansion. The state government will pay all, or nearly all, for 5 years, and then they'll pay 90% forever. There have been studies already made that if we expand Medicaid to cover 100, someone who makes 150%, or a family of four that makes 150% of the poverty level, then the federal government pays, but it creates enough jobs in health care and the taxes it brings in, it'll pay that amount, extra 10%. It won't cost us hardly anything. McMaster's up there now bragging about all this money we got to spend. Want to put $500 million in a reserve fund, 10% in a reserve fund. It sounds good, but it's stupidity. You've got to have a reserve fund, but a $250 million reserve fund is very adequate. And he says we have very low debt. Yeah, we always have had a low debt. We've got a constitutional debt limit. We don't hardly ever owe any money in the state of South Carolina. So it's just nonsense. We need to expand Medicaid And we need people out here hammering. I don't know if you watch TV and see this commercial about Georgia. They asked about the governor, why won't he expand Medicaid? Does he not understand it? Does he just not care, or is it politics? It's both. He doesn't care, and it's politics. And it's the same with Master. But we need to hammer people. The governor wants to raise the minimum starting pay for a teacher from $36,000 to $38,000. The average in the nation is $41,000. In order to do that, it's going to take $120 million. All right, McMaster wants to cut income taxes from 7 to 5%, our state income tax. That'll be $177 million. We could take that $177 million and we could pay our teachers average of national average. And we're losing teachers, and people are not going into teaching because they make so little money. It's such a hard job. I mean, we got 6 schools closed in Lawrence County for COVID now because our stupid school board won't make people wear masks. And, you know, that's just stupidity. My 4 grandchildren, one was an infant, the other 3 came to visit me during this COVID. All 3 of them wore masks. 2 5-year-olds and an 8-year-old. They had no problem with it. They had no problem with it. The notion that kids don't like it, that's nonsense. They'll do it. But these kind of things we've got to hammer. We've got to tie McMaster and all his shenanigans. The corruption in Columbia, we've got to bring it home to Appleville County. Somebody's got to go out there and tell them. You got to get in the paper as much as you can. You got to do direct mail. People won't take phone calls. You can't do phone banks. You got to get people out here knocking on doors. And the person who runs has got to be somebody that will go out here and knock on every door in this district. A house district is small enough that if you start early enough, you can knock on a huge percentage of people. Get registered voters, list of registered voters, and start going around precinct to precinct. You can do it. But that's what we need. And that's what I'm trying to do along with a group. We've got about 20 people on a committee statewide. And we just hadn't got off the ground. We got started late. The lady that was chairman of it, she had an illness. She had some deaths in her family, and it just, and she does something I don't do. She works for a living. I don't. I'm retired. But we've got to get those people, and we need to put somebody in this seat. They can win it if they work hard. The state party will help them with people who are campaign experts. They can help a little bit with money, but they got to raise some of the money themselves. But shoe leather is the biggest thing they need. Shoe leather to go around here. And they're going to have to talk about the person in the seat here votes against expanding Medicaid to 150%, people with 150% of the minimum wage. I mean, of poverty level. Does anybody know what, for a family of 4, the poverty level would be? 150% of the poverty level would be for a family of 4? It'd be about $37,000. Now, family of 4 with $37,000 to buy insurance would cost them thousands of dollars a year, and they can be covered. And your little hospital here, all the small hospitals in the state, are very dependent on that money because they're treating those people anyway. They come to the emergency room, they're treated. If they had Medicaid, they could go to the doctor's office and get it done a lot cheaper, a lot earlier, and not wait till they're real sick and go to the emergency room. But it is costing the hospitals of this state, most of which are public hospitals with taxpayers' money, millions of dollars a year to cover those people. But not only the humane thing of giving people health care, but that's something a person's got to hammer on in Appleville County. Somebody's got to tell people in Appleville County, this is what McMaster and them are doing to you. And here's the sad point. I can tell you, those people come around to race and they use it for everything. Somebody's got to tell these people, if you make 150% of the poverty level and you're a family of 4, it hurts you when you can't get health care and you don't get health care if you're white, just as much as if you're black. It'll help everybody. You know, it's them that wants everything a black and white issue. This isn't a black and white issue. It just hurts. Education isn't a black and white issue. We need to pay people a decent salary to be teachers, to attract more. We have a shortage of teachers now. The state legislature, when I was there in the 90s, were told that in the 2005 to 10 range, we had a huge number of teachers that were going to reach retirement. And we needed to pump up the number of teachers and recruit more teachers. Good old Republicans took over the Senate. My election is what gave them control of the Senate. They already had the House. In 2002, they won the governorship. They started cutting education. They didn't want to raise teachers' pay anything. They don't want to recruit teachers. They didn't want to pay them more to do anything. That's the kind of thing somebody's got to bring home to Appleton County. That's why your classrooms are so big down here at Greenville Street School, where I went through the 4th grade. That's where the high school, your classrooms are so big, so many people per teacher, because you just don't have enough money to pay teachers. It's easy to say the problem in education is not money, when in reality it is. You have to pay teachers to recruit teachers. You have to pay more teachers to have smaller classrooms, and that's one of the greatest things for discipline and learning is having a smaller class, because education is not an individual. It's not a collective effort. It's an individual effort. The teacher's got to spend time with every kid. And you can't do that if you don't have smaller rooms. But I ask y'all, for Appleton County, to help me, help you, help the state of South Carolina, by trying to recruit somebody to run for this House seat. And let me get in touch with them, because if they say, well, you know, I believe that if you put your name on the ballot, people understand that you're a good person and a smart person, and they'll vote for you. Nonsense. Nonsense. You've got to tell them you're a good person. You've got to tell them what's wrong with the other fella, and you got to tell them to vote for them. Vote for me. That's what you got to do. And then we need that person. They need to understand it, and they'll get help from the state Democratic Party if they understand it. Now, we've had a couple of people who run for office, and they get upset because the Democratic Party doesn't help them, won't do anything for them. If you have a person who does not know how to run a campaign and says, I don't want any help from you, I don't want your campaign manager, I don't want to do that, I just want you to give me some money. They're not going to do that. I had a candidate one time in Lawrence. He said the Democratic caucus and House wouldn't help him at all. And I went down and talked to a lady named Gilda Cobb Hunter, and trying to remember Joe's last name. It's amazing how much you can forget in 20 years. But anyway, they were in charge of the House caucus. They said, well, we've given him some money. I said, but he doesn't, he said he doesn't want our help. He says, we don't know how to run a campaign in Lawrence County. He said he thinks the way to run a campaign is to give out pencils with his name on it and have his kids wearing t-shirts and vote for my daddy. He won't do anything, run a real campaign. And he said, we can't give somebody money like that just to throw away when they don't want to tell us what they're going to spend it on. They don't want, you know, we'll pay for the ads, we'll pay for printouts and mails, but we're not going to just give him the money, and that's what he wants us to do. And that's something we got to make clear to the candidate. So there are a lot of things you have to sit down and make sure the candidate understands. Because if you get a candidate, he says, I don't want any of your help, and it's obvious he doesn't know how to run a campaign. Okay, she told me I had 1 hour. 41 minutes. I was a guy asked me one time when I was in the Senate in Columbia, I think it was the State Chamber of Commerce, to come to the State Chamber of Commerce and speak on restructuring of state government. It was a big bill when Carroll Campbell was governor many years ago. Maybe somebody here wasn't even born when Carroll Campbell was governor. I don't know. But anyway, and so he said, if you'll speak for 10 minutes, we have Representative so-and-so speaking 10 minutes, and Representative so-and-so speaking 10 minutes. So I went, and I sat down at the table, head table, and there's nobody there but me and the president of the organization. I said, what about the other two? He said, well, they couldn't come at the last minute. Can you take the whole 30 minutes? I said, yes, I can. I said, I can speak at length on any subject, even if I know absolutely nothing about it. So I could speak another 30 minutes. But I'm asking your help in getting us a candidate in Apple. It's a winnable district, but it's gotta be somebody that knows how to, wants to do it and knows how to do it. And it's somebody, you gotta start now. You can't wait till September, October. It's too late. A fella come talk to me one day, wanted to run for mayor of Lawrence. It's 30 days before the election. He worked in another town 5 days a week. I said, why did you wait so late to stay? He'd make a great mayor. I said, why did you wait so late to start? I said, you can't possibly do anything in this length of time. He said, well, I was gonna start door-to-door campaign this Saturday. I said, 4 Saturdays. And you think you're going, I said, you're wasting your time and your money if you do it. I said, I don't want to discourage you, but you'd be a great candidate, but a great mayor. And I hope one day he'll run for something else, but that's just it. You got to make that commitment. You got to understand the commitment you make. So y'all get out here and beat the bushes and rattle some people out of the woodwork that really want to win, because now's when you have to make that decision. You can't just grit your teeth and be so mad election day next year, or this year, on election day. Oh, we should have put somebody, I wish we had somebody else to vote for. That decision's gotta be made now. So, it was great coming to Apple, great seeing y'all. And, I hope y'all will help us out and help Appleville County out, help yourselves out. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Jim and Frank, and Mr. Bryan. Next time, Mary Lou and I will feed you. And you can get anything you want on the menu.
Oh, he did
And after
good
I told them I was
by
gonna buy
us.
lunch, they said, oh, we'd known that, we'd have ordered something different.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, I'm gonna run out, we gotta go to Appleville, then he's gotta drive on to Greenville.
Right, yeah.
And, we're going to Lawrence, excuse me,
Right.
we're in Apple. I'm glad I got him to help me get home.
Right, yeah. But thank you for coming. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
All right.